pretty much all of my money is now gone into cameras and drones. Love it. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Ali Sherry here. In today's video, we're going to be unboxing the Mavic 3 Cine Combo. Starting off, the Mavic 3 Cine Combo, after you unbox it, you have this carrying case. It pretty much has all your components inside of here. You pretty much have your drone, your camera, 3 batteries, the charging hub, the RC Pro controller, ND filters from 4 right up to 512, I believe. It comes with extra propellers. So right off the bat, the bag actually feels really heavy duty. The actual kind of material that they built it with, it's super kind of rugged. Definitely feels like a thicker type of leather compared to the Mavic 2 Fly More shoulder bag. I really like that bag, but what I kind of found was that it didn't really provide that much protection in terms of the actual drone itself. So whenever I would put my DJI Mavic 2 Pro in my trunk, I would always kind of feel in the back of my mind that the drone might potentially get damaged if I hit like a bump or something like that. Whereas with this bag right off the bat, I could tell that it's quite well made. It's definitely an upgrade from the Mavic 2 Pro shoulder bag, and the overall material is definitely thicker. It definitely has more weight to it for sure. And overall, I just feel right off the bat a lot more confident throwing this into my trunk and not worrying about my gimbal or my propellers being damaged whatsoever. So let's jump right into basically opening this up and looking at what we get with the Mavic 3 Cine Combo. So the Mavic 3 Cine Combo comes with 2 sets of ND filters. This is, I believe, 4 up to 32, and this is 64 up to 512. Here's the first set of ND filters. Comes as a nice little kind of carrying case. So as you can see, we have ND4, ND8, ND16, and ND32. Realistically speaking, I myself personally are probably going to be using this set of ND filters 95% of the time. I have a hard time seeing myself using the higher NDs unless I'm in a situation where I'm trying to do long exposure photography. In terms of my own kind of productions and even just kind of flying recreationally, I'm not really too big on doing a long exposure photography when it comes to drones. I prefer to do it more so with kind of like a ground camera. I like the fact that DJI is basically including these in the Mavic 3 Cine Combo, considering the amount of money that you're basically paying for it. But overall, yeah, it feels, the actual kind of carrying case feels really kind of premium, has a nice kind of weight to it. So being able to just close it up, lock it into place, it definitely feels really solid. Here's the second set of ND filters. So it starts at ND64, goes to 128, 256, and right up to 512. I think it's good to be able to have access to these type of ND filters, again, depending upon if you're gonna be doing any long exposure photography. But again, in my case, I rarely see myself using this set, but again, I still like the fact that DJI included these extra sets of ND filters, considering how much money you're basically forking out for the DJI Mavic 3 Cine Combo. So with the Mavic 3 Cine Combo, it actually comes with 3 sets of batteries. These are the new DJI Mavic 3 Intelligent Flight batteries. On paper, I believe they are purported to have about 46 minutes of flight time. Again, keep that in mind. That's only in the case when there's basically perfect conditions, probably no wind, or you'll probably kind of get actual 46 minutes. But in terms of actual real life scenarios, from the research that I've done, people are getting more so around 37 to about 42 minutes of flight time, which is still really amazing in comparison to the 27 minutes of flight time compared to the Mavic 2 Pro. I know for myself personally, when I was flying the Mavic 2 Pro, in real life situations, I would realistically only be able to get about 20 minutes of flight or so, leaving about 20 to 30% remaining to be able to basically fly back home in a safe manner. Just looking at these batteries overall, they definitely have more weight to it, obviously because there's a little bit more power that's basically being punched into these in comparison to the Mavic 2 Pro batteries. Really happy that DJI included 3 of these batteries. With 3 sets of batteries, you're looking at basically over an hour and a half of flight time alone, which is great. The next item that comes with this is the actual charging hub. So keep in mind, guys, when you basically put all 3 batteries into this, it actually won't charge all the batteries at the same time. It'll go in sequence. So basically you'll have one battery, it'll charge it to 100%. Then I'll go to the second battery, charge that to 100%, and then obviously finish off with the third one. And I'm happy that DJI basically included this. What I would have liked to see in the Mavic 3 Cine Combo is if they actually included a car charger for this or a separate kind of unit. With the DJI Mavic 2 Fly More combo, they actually included the car charger, and I found that to be super beneficial. In terms of build quality, I definitely like it. It definitely feels like an upgrade compared to the actual charging hub compared to the Mavic 2 Pro. I definitely like the fact that you can charge it through a USB-C cable. For myself personally, I have a ton of USB-C cables kind of laying all around. So knowing that I have easy access to be able to just plug this into a USB-C and just get this thing charging definitely feels better in comparison to maybe using a different type of wire to charge these. Now, this is the one item that I'm actually looking forward to the most outside of the actual Mavic 3 drone itself. This is the new DJI RC Pro controller. Right off the bat, it definitely has a lot of weight to it. It definitely feels super premium. In terms of the actual input, you have a mini HDMI input Whereas before with the older RC controller, it was a full HDMI input, but this is actually a mini HDMI input. You have a USB-C input for charging, and then you have a micro SD card slot if you want to basically insert a micro SD to basically have another form of backup. In terms of the actual weight itself, it definitely has a nice kind of weight to it. Feels super nice in the hands actually overall. It feels really grippy. You have a ventilation system over here and also up over here. This basically allows air to basically flow through the controller, which will keep it cool in certain type of situations. Here you actually have the joysticks where you basically just pop them out like such. Right off the bat, the actual pin heads are very, very small. I just take a quick look and I try putting it on right now. Yeah, that feels super premium, and just right off the bat, it's in and ready to go. In terms of the actual feel of the sticks itself, it definitely feels really, really premium. I definitely feel that these sticks will allow me to be able to execute a lot more kind of specific shots where there's very small type of movements. Just kind of overall in terms of actual build quality with the actual sticks itself in comparison to the regular controller that comes with the actual Mavic 3. Being able to operate your drone with a dedicated device, that basically removes the hassle of getting, you know, incoming calls, text messages, or any other type of alerts while you're in the field. I kind of find that having a phone and just basically putting on silent mode, it's a bit of a hassle. I kind of like to just kind of put my phone away to the side and just basically have an actual dedicated device itself. Another thing that's really important about this controller in comparison to the regular smartphone controller is that this has superior transmission. This actually comes with DJI's OcuSync 03 Plus transmission system. That basically means it has superior transmission, longer range, and overall just a better flight experience when you're in the air. I believe that with this controller, you have a range of about 15 kilometers. That's what it says on paper. I definitely want to test it out to make sure that's actually the case. I'll probably make a separate video on that. Another thing to keep in mind is that the actual screen itself goes up to about 1,000 nits. Having 1,000 nits brightness when you're in the field, especially on a sunny day, is super, super key. Again, because the amount of times I've dealt with reflection while using my phone can be super hard to look at certain details or anything specific that you're trying to focus on. And just by being able to have a dedicated device that has 1,000 nits kind of built into it is super, super beneficial. From my understanding, the actual tablet that's built into it is actually it's basically like an Android phone essentially. The actual internals in terms of the actual GPU performance is definitely an upgrade compared to the older RC Pro controller. Right off the bat, the actual controller itself feels super premium, but that goes all the way up to 1,000, and right off the bat, that's like super, super bright. I'm gonna lower that down so you guys can see a little bit more details on the actual screen here. So definitely, the actual controller definitely feels a lot more responsive in terms of being able to open up apps, close them, slide them out like such, being able to kind of toggle through certain things. If you basically look at the top right here, if you pull this down, at the top right here, if you actually take your finger and you swipe it down, this kind of gives you a kind of like a mission control kind of area. Here you have your Wi-Fi, your Bluetooth, you have a do not disturb mode, you have your screen recording, which again is super beneficial. You'll be able to do a screenshot. There's like mobile data, and there's also an airplane mode, which I think is super beneficial. The one thing I do like about this controller too is that with this version of Android, it actually allows you to download third-party apps. Like for example, one app I like to use a lot when it comes to basically doing a lot of drone planning is Windy. This allows me to basically kind of prepare for certain kind of certain weather conditions ahead of time, and by being able to have this application on the actual controller itself will be super beneficial, especially when I'm planning for certain missions ahead of time. So in terms of the actual button layout, so here are obviously our actual sticks itself. They feel really, really responsive. As you can see, they definitely feel very precise in terms of the actual movement. So when I'm basically going to be in the air and I want to kind of execute complex movements, I definitely feel very confident in terms of how responsive these sticks feel. Here you have your actual flight modes. You have your Cine mode, your normal mode, and then you have your sport mode. Obviously in sport mode, that's basically when all the sensors are going to be turned off and you can fly the drone up to about, I think, 44 miles per hour, which is around 70 kilometers an hour. Here you have your pause button, your return to home. This is your power button, and then here's your omnidirectional button. You can program this to either basically change the gimbal or other type of settings. Use a dedicated button that basically allows you to toggle back between applications or web pages. You just basically got to click it and it takes you back to your actual homepage. Here are the actual antennas, again with DJI's new and improved OcuSync 03 Plus, which basically allows for better transmission. It reduces any type of magnetic interference and overall better range. At the bottom of the controller, you have two additional buttons. You have your C1 and C2 buttons. You can again program these to basically for either like gimbal pitch or for your auxiliary light, which is actually at the bottom of the drone. And then at the front, you have your recording button for videos, your capture button when it comes to taking photos, and then you have your thumb wheel for the zoom camera, and you also have your gimbal pitch in terms of using an actual speed dial to be able to adjust it while you're in flight. But overall, definitely feels very, very premium in the hand. So that's pretty much a quick overview in terms of the actual RC Pro controller. I'll probably do an actual video itself just dedicated to reviewing this in particular. And last but not least, guys, the actual Mavic 3 Cine itself. Right off the bat, feels super premium. Definitely feels similar in weight to the Mavic 2 Pro. It actually feels maybe just slightly lighter, but the actual overall body definitely feels a little bit larger. Here's the new gimbal clipping system, which basically uses a plastic mount that basically locks the gimbal into place and essentially wraps around underneath where it has the actual propellers in place on the bottom and also on the top. Overall, in terms of initial thoughts, I really kind of like this build. It definitely feels it'll keep the propellers into place so that when you're commuting, you won't worry about your actual propellers kind of flying all over the place. In terms of basically removing the actual gimbal mount, you basically just take the flap like such, you lift it, bring it down, grab the back of the drone, and you want to pull this forward, just like such. So here it is, and you just basically want to just pull it forward, just like such. Oh, I just noticed that it's magnetic. The actual mount itself is magnetic. That's pretty cool. So here is the Mavic 3 Cine drone itself. As you can see, the gimbal has definitely made it a big upgrade. So our main camera here is a 20 megapixel Hasselblad camera. Its equivalent focal length is about 24 millimeters, and it's a micro four thirds sensor. It's a little bit wider compared to the actual Mavic 3 Pro, which was around 28 millimeters, whereas this focal length is around 24 millimeters. So the actual telephoto zoom lens has an equivalent of about 162 millimeters in terms of the actual focal length, and it has a 1/2 inch CMOS sensor. In terms of the actual ability of the camera, it shoots up to 12-bit RAW compared to 10-bit in the Mavic 2 Pro. And just overall, this drone has a lot more flexibility in terms of frame rates and resolutions. So the main camera shoots up to 5.1K at 50 frames per second, but you can also shoot 5.1K at 24, 25, 30, or 48 frames per second. It also has DCI 4K resolution, which again, you can shoot up to 24, 25, 30, 48, 50, 60, and 120 FPS, which is insane to think about because now pilots have the ability to shoot any type of action events in 120 frames per second at 4K resolution and be able to slow that down right up to about 40% in post-production. Just seeing the actual camera itself is very capable in terms of the options, in terms of resolutions and frame rates. It makes this drone far superior over the Mavic 2 Pro because it now allows you a lot more flexibility in terms of shooting environments depending upon the actual subject that you're shooting. And now the last thing I want to touch upon for this unboxing, which is the Mavic 3 Cine, the actual Cine version. What you're really basically paying for here is Apple ProRes. And what basically Apple ProRes is, it's basically an uncompressed codec that allows you to retain as much data as possible in an image. The downside with shooting Apple ProRes is that the file sizes are huge. So for example, a 30-second clip at H.264 might be around 30 to 400 megabytes in size, whereas an Apple ProRes 422 codec at the exact same length of 30 seconds probably is going to be around 11 to 12 gigabytes, which is why the actual Mavic 3 Cine Combo comes with a 1 terabyte internal SSD. The reality is that if you're shooting an Apple ProRes, you're going to fill up your internal SSD very, very quickly. I am a fan of it. The only thing that is a bit of a downside is that you actually need to keep the drone on when you have it plugged in. And the way how basically plug in your drone when you're offloading data is that you basically just flip this top part over here. There's a USB-C input. You plug this in with the actual cable that came with the actual Mavic 3 Cine Combo. From there, you just connect it to your computer, and then you actually have to turn the drone on fully for you to be able to access the internal 1 terabyte SSD. Now, the good news, however, is that the actual SSD itself that's built into this drone is pretty fast in terms of its read and write speeds. It has about 700 megabytes read speed, and it has 471 megabytes write speed. So when you're basically transferring large files such that are easily over 20 or 30, even 50 gigs, it won't take too long. However, if you're shooting a lot of content in Apple ProRes, probably going to want to set some time aside to fully transfer all your files over in a safe and efficient manner. Seeing that DJI has provided the Mavic 3 and the Mavic 3 Cine full 360-degree optical avoidance, this will allow pilots to basically utilize intelligent flight modes with a lot more confidence, knowing that they're able to automate their drone in the air, while this new and improved optical avoidance system will be working in their favor to obviously avoid any type of unwanted obstacles in flight. Now, there is one caveat to this, guys. I personally wouldn't necessarily rely on this system 100%, as this drone is not foolproof in the sense that it can still run into trees or wires or any other type of obstacles that it may have a hard time picking up. But in comparison to the Mavic 2 Pro's optical avoidance system, the Mavic 3's full 360-degree optical avoidance system with all these new sensors is definitely a huge upgrade. Anyways, guys, this pretty much wraps up my initial thoughts of the Mavic 3 Cine Combo. As you can see, there's a lot of value that's packed in this package, but obviously you're paying quite a premium dollar for it. In terms of my overall thoughts, again, unless you do professional video production for a living, I would probably say the Mavic 3 Cine is an overkill. However, if you do run this type of business or you want to basically get the highest quality possible, this is the drone to get, in my opinion, considering the fact that the actual form factor is nothing crazy. and that the actual image that you get out of it, from what I've seen and from the research that I've done, is absolutely mind-blowing. Make sure to like and subscribe, guys. I'll be making a full-on video review of the Mavic 3 Cine Combo. I'm going to be putting it through its paces in terms of all the new features that DJI has provided with this drone, and overall seeing the improved performance of this drone in comparison to other drones that I've owned from DJI in the past. Hope you guys found this helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.